You know that feeling, right? You're deep in a competitive game, palms sweating, everything's intense, and then something just totally outside your control frustrates you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's lag, or I don't know, the platform makes getting your winnings super complicated.
Or you just feel like you're playing alone, totally disconnected. It happens.
Exactly. It really pulls you out of the zone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In competitive gaming, you want the challenge to be the game, the opponent, not the system underneath it all.
Right. Any friction there just undermines the whole thing.
Golden.
So, okay, we've gathered a bunch of sources, articles, some announcements, research papers that really dive into this interesting spot where esports meets blockchain. Specifically, we're looking at this platform, Miomi Game. It just went live on the SKALE Network.
Right. And so for this deep dive, our goal is basically to unpack what this partnership is all about.
Yeah. What problems are they saying they solve for gamers, for you?
And what do these sources actually suggest about where esports and, Web3 gaming might be heading? Let's dig into the material.
Okay, let's do it. So the sources seem to start by sort of critiquing the way traditional esports platforms work now. What are the main pain points Miomi brings up?
Well, what's interesting is their focus isn't just on the superstar pros.
Right.
The sources point to things like really rigid tournament structures, maybe not everyone can join, and monetization that heavily favors just the absolute top tier.
Leaving those people out.
Exactly. Leaving most players kind of out in the cold when it comes to rewards.
Yeah, that really stood out. The sources use this specific phrase, that many platforms leave millions of everyday players underserved and unrewarded. So it sounds like Miomi is aiming right at that massive group of players.
That definitely seems to be the narrative in the sources. They position Miomi Game as a Web3 platform built, and this is their quote, for anyone who wants to turn their skills into rewards.
Anyone.
Yeah, the idea seems to be accessibility. For casual players, for more serious competitors, the whole spectrum.
So how are they planning to do things differently? This next-gen ecosystem idea? The sources talk quite a bit about a play-to-win model.
Right, play-to-win. They frame it as moving away from what they call passive grinding.
Just putting in hours hoping for something later.
Exactly. Moving away from that towards introducing genuine stakes into, every match.
But
The goal is to make each game a real-time competitive opportunity. Your performance directly links to potential rewards or value.
And this seems to be where a really key idea comes out in the sources, this player-driven ecosystem concept.
Yes.
The material really stresses that the users are the ones funding the prize pools, which they argue makes the whole thing self-sustaining, transparent, and player-driven.
That self-funding part is, it's potentially quite powerful, isn't it?
It seems like it.
It's not just the platform or some big sponsor deciding the rewards. It's the community, the players themselves creating that value. And the numbers cited are pretty striking.
Yeah.
$98 plus in prize pools. And the sources emphasize self-funded prize pools.
Wow. Okay, hold on. Over $98 million funded by the players.
That's what the sources state.
That's more than just a number.
Yeah.
That suggests players are really buying into this, putting their own money on the line.
It certainly points to a different dynamic than the usual models.
For sure. And the sources give other scale numbers too, right? Over 650,000 registered users.
Yep, 650,000 plus users, $3.4 million raised in funding.
Okay.
And they even mention getting an endorsement from Ronaldinho, the football icon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which they frame as a way to help, bridge Web 2 gamers into the Web 3 world without friction. Smooth that transition.
Makes sense. And it's not just hypothetical. They're actually playing.
Right. The sources mention millions of competitive matches played. So people are actively using it. It's a live system with real engagement already.
Okay, so Miomi's tackling the economic side, play to win, player funding. But gaming is so social, right?
Hugely social.
How do the sources say Miomi approaches building that community, that connection?
That seems to be another really core piece for them. They apparently want to be a full gaming social network.
A full social network.
Yeah, the idea presented is that traditional online play can often feel like just isolated gaming sessions. You play, it ends, you move on.
Totally. You get dropped in the match, maybe never see those players again. So
yeah.
What features do they list to kind of fight that?
The sources list things you'd expect, but integrated, creating profiles, tracking your performance stats publicly,
Yep.
adding friends, direct chat within the platform itself.
So it's keeping the interaction going beyond just that one match.
Exactly. Think about being able to track like your head-to-head record against a specific friend or rival over time.
Yeah.
Or easily challenging someone right after a close match. The sources argue this helps turn those one-off games into ongoing rivalries and friendships.
Makes sense. It makes the whole thing stickier, more engaging.
Right. Less playing against random usernames, more being part of a connected community built around the competition.
Okay, so the vision is empower the average player, add real stakes, build in social connections, but actually doing all that, especially with real-time matches, potentially tons of small prize transactions that need some serious tech underneath.
Absolutely. You need a robust, fast backbone.
And that's where SKALE comes in. According to the sources, why SKALE? What was the reason they chose that network?
This is where the sources get into the technical weeds a bit. They're pretty clear that SKALE offers the needed technical edge.
Okay.
The key benefits they hammer home are zero gas fees, instant finality, and unmatched throughput.
All right, let's break those down because they're not just jargon. They seem vital for the experience Miomi wants. Zero gas fees. That feels huge for a play-to-win model with lots of small transactions, right?
Huge. I mean, the insight there, especially for Miomi's target audience, the everyday player, is that zero gas makes certain economic models even possible.
How so?
Well, if every little action, every tiny prize payout, every small entry fee cost even a penny or two in gas fees.
It adds up fast.
It adds up incredibly fast and could price out exactly the players they're trying to attract. Zero gas makes those frequent small on-chain interactions actually viable.
Okay, makes sense. What about instant finality?
Instant finality basically means when something happens on the chain, a match result gets logged, a prize sent, it's confirmed, like now, instantly.
No waiting around.
No waiting for multiple block confirmations. And the sources really emphasize this. In fast-paced PvP gaming, precision is needed.
Yeah, you can't have delays.
Exactly. Even the slightest delay or cost can disrupt the player experience.
Yeah.
Instant finality helps ensure the blockchain reflects the game state without lag or frustration.
Got it. And unmatched throughput, what's that about?
Throughput is just capacity. How much can happen at once. So unmatched throughput means the network can handle a really high volume of transactions simultaneously without getting bogged down or slow.
Which is important if you've got millions of matches played.
Precisely. Millions of matches could mean countless related on-chain actions, entries, results, payouts, profile updates. You need that capacity to keep things smooth for everyone, especially as it scales up.
The sources also bring up SKALE's dynamic on-chain storage. How does that fit in, especially with the social stuff we talked about?
Ah, right. That supports keeping player data persistent and detailed beyond just the basic match outcomes.
So not just who won or lost.
No, it's about securely and transparently tracking stuff that evolves, like your win-loss record against specific people, your overall stats, achievements earned, building that rich profile history directly on the blockchain, dynamically.
Which feeds back into that social layer, providing real, verifiable data for those rivalries and connections.
Exactly. It deepens the social aspect.
And the sources also mentioned SKALE is building a vibrant Web3 gaming community. So Miomi isn't just landing on some random tech, they're joining an existing ecosystem.
Yeah, that context seems pretty important. If you look at other SKALE news mentioned in the sources, you get a sense of their wider commitment to gaming.
Like that $2 million indie game accelerator program from March 2025, that looks like a direct play to get more game developers building on SKALE.
Exactly. Or there was a partnership with Vast Labs mentioned from April 2024, specifically focused on elevating the GameFi experience using SKALE's tech.
So consistent effort in the space.
It appears so. These aren't just one-off things. It looks like ongoing investment in building out their gaming niche.
The sources even mention a key hire, Andrew Saunders, as Chief Marketing and Growth Officer in May 2024. They note his background, former CMO at Arbitrum.
Right, and they present that alongside some pretty impressive growth metrics for SKALE itself.
Yeah, like a 4,500% increase in unique active wallets year over year, and $6 billion in total gas fee savings generated on the network.
Putting those pieces together, the hire, the growth stats, the accelerator, the partnerships, paints a picture of a network that's not just saying it's good for gaming, but seems to be actively growing and proving it with adoption.
So Miomi is launching into what looks like pretty fertile ground.
That seems to be the implication from the sources, yes. They're joining a network that's actively building momentum in Web3 gaming.
It really sounds like Miomi's vision and Scale's tech and ecosystem focus are, well, lining up quite strategically.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a quote in the sources from Tamer Saharda, Miomi Game COO, that kind of nails this partnership.
Oh, yeah.
He says, at Miomi Game, we're not just building a platform, we're shaping the future of esports and social gaming. Scale gives us the power to scale instantly without compromising user experience. Their vision of mass Web3 adoption fully aligns with ours, and we're proud to call them our partners.
Yeah, that sums it up nicely. The big ambition shaping the future, the critical need for tech that scales without hurting the player experience.
Crucial for gamers.
Absolutely. And that shared goal of bringing Web3 to, a much wider audience.
So wrapping this up from our deep dive into these sources,
Yeah.
what does this all mean for you, the gamer listening?
Well, it looks like Miomi Game is trying to directly tackle some common frustrations everyday players have.
Like feeling shut out of rewards or playing in isolation?
Right. They're putting forward this play-to-win model, player-funded pools, adding social features, and crucially building it on scale because it's tech. The zero gas, the speed, the storage is supposedly what makes that seamless, real-time competitive experience possible on-chain.
It suggests a potential shift, maybe, in how gaming platforms could work.
Possibly.
Yeah.
A shift towards maybe giving more power, more direct value back to the players themselves, moving away from purely centralized control towards something more community-driven.
Okay, so based on everything these sources lay out, here's a final thought to chew on. If platforms like Miomi really do succeed in using Web3 tech like Scales to let players fund their own prize pools, track stats transparently, build communities around real stakes, what could that mean for the old guard, the established powers in esports and gaming?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, how might that kind of shift towards player ownership and direct value actually change how you compete, or even how games get designed and played down the road?